So again, good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for joining. And I don't know, is this true? So again, we will start with a short breathing mindfulness to mindfulness breathing to bring our mind in moment present. And then we can try to have a good intention, motivations. For example, the purpose of my life is to practice the Dharma. Not only Dharma, to practice the Mahayana Dharma, the Bodhisattva path. In order to help, benefit, and liberate all sentient beings from all their suffering and cause of suffering. And in order to engage and make progress on the Bodhisattva path, I need to cultivate the Bodhisattva mind and wisdom realizing emptiness. And to engage in Bodhisattva practice as perfections. And for that, I need to practice. And to practice, I need to study, learn, as well as a reminder of the practice. For that reason and purpose, I'm going to listen, engage in discussion, reflection, contemplations. And may our act of coming together to listen, reflect, contemplate, may all this become cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, fully awakened state. So we can be greatest help, benefit to all sentient beings. Okay, so then we can
It's my plans. A second. Yeah.
Thank you. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Soke Sonam La Changju Batu Dane Kyapsoj Dagi Choshe Gibe Sonam Gi Dola Penje Sangye Tubash Sangye Chodam Soke Sonam La Changju Batu Dane Kyapsoj Dagi Choshe Gibe Sonam Gi Dola Penje Sangye Tubash Kanje Rojen Sone Tawatan De Bamese Tabeshuni Twit Kodam De La Chapsa. Okay, so up to last week, within the part of this text, Garland or Jewels, we kind of completed the kind of the part of the method, more or less, and now it comes to the wisdom. And again, last week, we end the verses where Lama Atisha advised that that no matter how well we do in our life on a spiritual level or in general, we shouldn't be too arrogant and self-importance. And when that happens, try to remember the practice instruction and try to practice the humility and humbleness. On the other hand, when things goes wrong and when we have a lot of difficulties, challenges, problem in our life, when it arises, again, don't allow ourselves to be too depressed and become too low, our mind, due to all this. In such situation, again, try to remember the advice, teachings, and practice, and try to uplift your mind and spirit. And so basically, not allowing ourselves to be either being too depressed when things are not going well, and not being too self-important, too pride when things go so well, and instead trying to practice more balance, more equanimity, and so forth. So that was where project. That's where we finish the verse in terms of the, I think, page number 3, where it, at the very beginning of that, and recall your master personal advice, or whatever you feel discouraged or inadequate, raise your spirit and encourage yourself. So up to that we finish. And next it comes to the wisdom where and always meditate on emptiness. So again, when things are going well in our life, on a spiritual level or in worldly life, so again, when things are progressing well, when things seem well, sometimes it can give rise to kind of sense of self-importance, arrogance, and so forth. Again, try to meditate. Here, the advice is, when that happens, try to meditate on emptiness of the self, the emptiness of the objects, emptiness of the feeling of self-importance or the arrogance itself. And when you try to meditate on that emptiness, and when you don't see through the meditation emptiness, when you don't see there is nothing that exists inherently or from its own side, there's no self that exists from its own side to be so self-important. to be so important or to be so arrogant, then again, you can reduce that self-important and arrogant. Also, meditating on the emptiness of the objects of the self-important or the pride. Also meditating on the emptiness of the pride itself, the self-important itself. And when you meditate on that, then again, you begin to see and you begin to feel, there's no object to be, there's no inherently existing object. There's no object exists from its own side for us to be so, grasping, clinging, and feel inflated or pride or arrogant due to that. And through that, then you can again reduce that. On the other hand, when the things are not easy and things seems to go in the wrong directions, and life feel like full of challenges, problem, sufferings, again, when we have strong grasping of self, then that can make us, I'm inadequate, I'm worthless, I'm good for nothings, and all kind of those feelings. And through that, then it can lead to kind of depression, self-loathing, self-hatred, all of that. Again, if you meditate on the selflessness of yourself persons, when you realize there is nothing inherently existing self that exists from its own side, then there is no reason to feel this self is inadequate or this self is not good enough. This self is bad, because there is no such self, inherently existing self. There is no object, the self itself, to feel that self is inadequate or self is not good enough or self is bad. And so again, through that, then again, you can stop or reduce the feeling of that, negative feeling about the self. And so that is and always trying to meditate on the emptiness, because the wisdom realizing emptiness is the key to liberations. Is the antidote that can cut all the delusion, all the obscuration, and without realizing emptiness, there's no way to no way to free from the samsara. There's no way to cut the obscurations. There's no way to achieve fully enlightenment. So therefore, just as Bodhisattva is very important, equally, the wisdom realizing emptiness is equally important, both of them, which are the two wings that help us to cross the oceans of samsara to the shore of non-abiding nirvana or fully enlightenment. So the next one, should the object of attachment or aversion appear, view them as no more than illusions or projections. So last time, there are certain meditation techniques when attachment arises and aversion arises to kind of let go of attachment or aversion through different practice meditation. Here again, by relying the wisdom, realizing emptiness. So again, when we, when the attachment arises, towards any objects, whether it's the external object or internal objects, here the advice is try to see the object of attachments as, see them and view them as like illusion, projection, even though the object appear to exist, nice, beautiful, good from its own side. But if you analyze, there is nothing that exists as a good from its own objective inherently. There's nothing beautiful from its own side objectively. There's nothing, positive from its own side objectively. All this appearance of positive, good, nice from its own side objectively is just a false. It's a deception. In reality, that is how things do not exist. And therefore, even though they do not exist that way, but it appears to our mind that way because of our imprint from the past. And therefore, by seeing them like an illusion, therefore not believing in the appearance, not believing in the appearance. And if you don't believe in the appearance, then you don't get attached to it, because the attachment arises because we believe in the appearance. The appearance, there is sense of inherently existing object from its own side as a good, positive, attractive, beautiful from its own side. That is the appearance, and we believe that appearance, and that is attachment. But once, even though there is appearance, you don't believe that way, because you see it is deception, it's like illusion. Then you don't get so strong attachment, and then you can, even you felt attachment at the very beginning, you can let go of the attachment. You can reduce the attachments. And same with the aversions. And thereby seeing, how the object of attachment do not exist inherently or objectively from its own side, but instead is merely projections of your mind, is merely imputed by your mind, is merely projection of your mind. So more, instead of objectively, that object existing as a good, positive, pleasant, attractive from its own side, instead is a projection of your mind. It's coming from your mind. It's merely imputed by your mind. So when you see that, then you don't believe the appearance, and then you don't get so strongly attached to it. In the same way, when we have a certain aversions to certain objects, why we are aversions to that object? Because that object, in that moment, that object appears to our mind as something bad, as something negative, as something unpleasant, as something very, negative quality, something negative quality from its own side, objectively. There is that appearance, and not only there is not just appearance, then we believe that appearance. We believe there is negative, unpleasant, bad object from its own side. And because of that, then there is a feeling of disliking and aversions, And so again, if we try to analyze and go more deeper, then, that object, if you go in deeper, where is that object that appear, from its own side negatively? If you try to find within the part which make that object, you cannot find within any part that make up. Neither you can find that object of the aversion outside of the parts. And therefore, even though there is appearance of existing objectively, but there's nothing that exists from inherently or objectively. And therefore, that appearance and that object is, merely projections of our mind, merely imputed by our mind, merely designated by our mind. Therefore, it's like illusions. It's like illusions. And through that understanding of viewing that as an illusion, and you don't believe into that appearance. If you don't believe in that appearance, even though it appears something negative from its own side objectively, inherently, even though it appears something unpleasant from its own side objectively, inherently, you don't believe that because you know it's like an illusion, it's merely imputed projections of your mind. And then if you don't believe that, then we don't have same disliking, strong disliking, aversions. And through that, then we can let go of the attachment, aversions. And yeah, just to give an example, classical example that you see, in a certain environment, when it is a little dark, you can still see a little bit, but it's a little dark and you are in distance and you see a rope called like a snake, and from distance you can't see it clear and you might feel, oh, there is a snake there. There is a snake there by your door and you feel fear. There's a fear arising based on viewing or seeing that as a snake, but that is totally mistaken. That is totally mistaken, It's totally mistaken. There is no real snake there due to certain cause and conditions, because it's a dark, the way the rope is rolled, and because maybe you have image of snake, and that due to many conditions it appeared that way, but there is nothing. If you go closer, then there is no snake. There's no snake. When you realize there's no snake, there's no more fear. The fear is gone. In same way, at the very beginning, it appears something existing from its own side negatively. And once you go closer with your analyze and you really analyze, when you see there's no real object of that aversion truly exists in inherent existence, even though it appeared to you at the very beginning, but there's no that object that appeared to your mind, then again, there's no, your aversion, dislike will be no more there. That feeling, emotion will not be there. So that is where it says, view them as no more than illusion or projections, Similarly, should you hear unpleasant words, consider them nothing more than echoes. Same things, when you hear unpleasant words, people criticizing you, talking bad about you, negative about you, gossiping about you, whatever, backbiting you, whatever we hear that, again, we believe those words to be true, inherently existing, truly existing. And when you believe those words to be truly existing, inherently existing, then again, we feel hurt by those words, and then we get upset by those words, and then it disturbs our mind. It disturbs our mind because we're upset. We're upset because we were hurt by those words, and we were hurt by that word because we grasp or believe those words to be inherently or truly negative words, something bad, negative words. So here the advice is, try to see them, try to view them, try to consider them nothing more than echoes. So echoes is, when there's echoes, it seems like the sound is coming from that area, but there's no real someone there. The person might be the other side. So the person or whatever sound where it's coming from, it could be other side, but from that echo, it feels like it is coming from that particular, cave or that particular areas. And so even though it feels like, it sounds like it's coming from there, there's nothing there. That word's coming from there itself. Similarly, even though those words seems to or appears, truly negative, inherently negative and bad, but there's nothing inherently bad. There's nothing inherently negative. When you understand that, then again, when you are able to see that way, when you are able to view that way, when you're able to consider that way, then you don't get so much hurt by that such words, by believing or by considering them as a truly or inherently bad or negative. When you don't see that, then you don't get so much hurt. If you don't get hurt, then you don't have to be upset. And if you don't get upset, you don't have to suffer. So, and then next one, yeah, in this one verse, there's so much pack up. There's so many practices. It's just that word, like always meditate on emptiness. That could be meditating on the space like emptiness, space like emptiness, and then shoot the object of attachment, aversions, view them as no more than illusion, projection. Should you hear unpleasant words, consider them nothing more than echoes. That is like meditating on, illusion like emptiness, illusion like emptiness. So first, in the earlier verse, end of the early verse, always meditate on emptiness. It's like space like emptiness. And then next one is meditating on illusion like emptiness. So, and then next, should you suffer physical harm, see it as a result of your past actions. Of course, not only physical, any kind of harm, any kind of suffering, any kind of feeling, painful feeling, suffering, challenges, difficulties, whenever we experience that, any of that, then, try to see it as the result of your own past action. Not only seeing them as a result of your past actions, but if you see just as a result of your past actions, not only you see it as a past action, but you also try to see you are purifying the past negative karma. That is the important part. Sometimes we only see it as a result of negative karma, past negative karma. Okay? We only see it as a result of past negative karma, and sometimes we might feel bad about it, I must be a horrible person in the past. I must have done something horrible in the past. I must be a bad being in the past, So we don't only see it as, so then you might see it in a more negative way. Instead, you try to see something positive. Seeing not only is a result of past negative karma, by experiencing that, we are purifying and cleansing so much negative karma that we don't have to experience in the futures. By experiencing this, I'm cleansing and purifying negative karma that could throw me in the lower rebirth and the suffering of lower rebirth. Therefore, compared to the suffering of lower rebirth, this suffering is nothing. It's a very light. Even though it's a suffering, even the problem is such a light. Therefore, you feel like it's worthwhile, something positive instead of feeling negative. That is very important. I think I feel like a lot of people, they see as a result of negative karma. And so they see more negative way instead of seeing positively because it's purifying. If you see it is a purifying cleansing, then it's a positive sign. It's like, you have some illness. And then as when you started to recover, you have some symptoms. Do you get it? And when you started to feel that symptom, is good because you are in process of recovering. Even though that symptom is a little bit unpleasant, a little bit painful, but is a good sign. That means you will be fully recovered or fully healed from that. And then you will be free from that. And so therefore, then you can handle it better because it's something. So that is another factor that we try to bring it, in our practice. Not just only seeing as a result of negative karma, but actually seeing it as a positive because it's cleansing and purifying. And also in the many teachings, all the Lamrim and others, they say, sometimes when you do practice and when you through practice, whether it's purification practice or other practice, we purify a lot of negative karma. And through those practices, we purify a lot of negative karma to throw us in the, such as lower rebirth for many, many lifetimes. And those negative karma are being purified as a sign, positive sign of being purified. Maybe we might have some obstacle in this life. Maybe we can have some headache. We might have some kind of fever. Maybe we might have some other physical issues or some in other form of challenge and difficulty in manifesting. But it's a sign of having purified all those negative karma. If you read Vajrakata Sutra, there is that the Buddha said, when you recite the Vajrakata Sutra, when you read it, when you recite it, when you write it, when you reflect, contemplate, study, meditate, you purify a lot of negative karma, such as being thrown in. As a sign of being purified, you can have some kind of physical illness or something, but it's a good sign. It's a sign of purification that you have purified a lot. So it's same here. We try to. It's important to remember that. Another, when we try to hear, as it says, a lot of time when we suffer, whether it's physical harm, whether it's emotional pain, or any kind of challenges, difficulties, sufferings, due to those challenges, difficulties, problems, and suffering, sometimes we tend to blame others for all these things. We tend to find someone to blame, for our sufferings. And a lot of times we blame others, directly, indirectly. And that when you blame others, you start to feel anger towards them. Because we say, they are the responsible for my pain, my suffering, my problems. And once you see that they are the cause of my problem and my suffering, they are the responsible for my problem and suffering, of course, then you get upset and angry with them. But instead of doing that, when you take responsibility for your own karma, the main factor for my problem, my suffering, is mainly because of my karma ripening. It's because of my karma ripening, and their actions is very small. Their actions is very small contributions. Their action is kind of secondary cause and conditions. the main cause and condition, the primary cause and condition, my own karma. Without my own karma being involved, even they do that, I will not experience the suffering, the pain, problems. So more than anything is because it's mainly from my own. When you are able to accept that truly from your heart, is one, accepting from the words, accepting from the heart is very different, Of course, we always say, oh, it's because of karma. But when it happen to us, it's hard to accept. It's because of our karma. It's extremely hard to accept. It's easy to say it's a result of karma when someone is experiencing that. It's easy to accept it's a result of karma but when it happened to us, when we experience problem, suffering, pain, it's extremely hard. Even though intellectually we know a little bit. Even though we have studies, even though we know those are the result of karma, but when it really happened, it's extremely hard to accept. Actually, it's my karma, result of my karma. And not being able to accept that, when we cannot accept that as my own result of my own karma, then we find others. We try to find another cause, or he or she, or this and that. So then we try to find cause of that in somewhere else, and then we blame others, and that's when we get upset and angry with others. And so when you see that, then we take the responsibility, except when you accept from your heart, then you don't blame the others so much. And if you don't blame them, you don't have to be upset with them. If I don't blame the others for my problem, my suffering, I don't have to be upset with them. But the moment I blame the others, whoever that is, when I blame that person for my problem, then of course I will be upset with that person. And so that, again, by seeing that way, then again, we can stop. We can stop being upset and angry to someone based on blaming them for our problem and sufferings. If we don't blame them for our problem and suffering, then we don't have to be upset and angry to them. But when we blame, them for our problem and suffering, then definitely, then it's hard to stop the feeling upset and anger. And also with this verse, it goes through, whatever happened negative in your mind. The first two, attachment, aversions, something that unpleasant things happen in your mind, you try to overcome by seeing as illusions. Not only the mind, whenever there is something unpleasant from speech, such as unpleasant words arises, you try to see them nothing more than echoes, and then not get upset and angry with that. Not only that, not only the mind and speech, even when something happens unpleasant and physically, such as physical harm, also, you try to see it as a result of your own past, and not to blame others and not to get upset and angry. And so that is the advice. And also, of course, you can also apply the emptiness as well in that. The next one, keep entirely to solitude, far away from the town. And that, again, as we mentioned before, and like carcasses of some wild animal, stay hidden in the nature by yourself, free from all the entanglement and attachments. So basically, for the beginner practitioners, as such advice come again and again, you find in so many Buddhist teachings, the benefit or importance, if possible, to find more quiet, solitude, more quiet and solitude environment. And because of that environment, it helps us to get less distracted due to attachments, busyness of your mind, entanglements, getting jealousy with some others, getting competitive with others, getting attachments, getting in quarrel and upset and angry. And then due to that arising a lot of delusions, and also create negative karma. Instead, if you don't have to deal with that, all this busyness, but if you can find, more solitude in whatever way, without having to deal with all of that, then you have less distractions. If you have less distractions, you can focus better on your practice. If you can focus on your practice, then you can have better result. So that is for the beginner, as I mentioned before. For advanced practitioners, that is no problem. In the advanced practitioners who have the tools and who does not get distracted and who doesn't get easily attachment and anger, then being in a big town, big city, engaging with a lot of people, is not a problem. But for the beginner, when we get so much involved, sometimes we get in quarrels. And then with that quarrel, then again, we started to, debate or quarrel, and then we started to fight and get upset and all of that and so forth. So that is why here the advice giving, and you see that such advice again and again in most of the Lojong practice and many of the Buddhist practice. And again, we have to remember, that for the very beginner is important. Once you are more advanced, then it is a different matter. Once you have the more stronger practice, So beginner, it is better to kind of keep distant from that object that give rise to attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, competitiveness, all that. But once you are advanced practitioner, once you have all the tools, then you try to engage, be more with such environment where there is more object of attachment, where there's more object of aversion, and all of that, because then it gives you an opportunity to practice, and you have the tool to practice, and you can make progress, quickly. But at the very beginning, you don't have tool, and you come in encounter, and you will get burned. It's like you have something gear to protect yourself, then going in the fire is not a problem. But if you don't have all this gear to protect yourself, going in the fire will burn you and burn others, and that is the difference. Okay, always, next one, always keep your pledges and commitments. And okay, so yeah, whatever pledges, commitment that we take, is be very careful and examining, investigating whether I'm ready to take such commitment, whether I'm ready to take such pledges, whether I can keep them or not. That is first examining. That is very important. If you feel you are ready for that, then you can take those commitment pledges in regard to different practices, in terms of different precepts, vows, whether it's the Patimosha vows, whether it's the Bodhisattva vows, whether it's tantric vows, whether it's a different level of, tantric initiation where it requires commitments and all of that. First it's important to analyze, investigate. Am I ready? Can I really keep those pledges and commitments or not? That is important, and not to rush. If you feel I'm not ready, then it's important go slowly and steady, building up the stronger foundation and going instead of just rushing all the time, And once we have taken then we have to make effort. You try to keep those commitment places, as much as possible. If we take those places and commit, if we cannot keep it, instead of creating more merit, we create more negative karma. Instead of helping our spiritual path, we might be deteriorating. Instead of leading in the forward, it could lead us in backwards. Of course, we are not perfect. Even if we try sometime, we might break some of those places of commitment. We try to purify, we try to renew them and try to practice, but at least we have to make the effort. At least we have to make the effort, to keep all of them as much as possible. Sometimes we take it and we don't make effort to keep them. Sometimes we take all these kind of commitment places, and sometimes you are not even aware what are those places and what are those commitments. And if you are not aware what are them, how can you keep it? I've encountered quite a bit of students who have says, they have taken this empowerment with this great Lama, this and that, and they are not even aware that they have taken those vows as part of that empowerment. They are not even aware they are taking those vows. They are not even aware they are taking tantric vows. They are not even aware what are the tantric vows. They are not even aware what are the Bodhisattva vows. If they are not aware, then how they are going to keep them? And I've seen many of them like that, and they get surprised. Oh, part of that empowerment required all of this, and they say, oh, I got this great initiation from this teacher, this Lama, and then, but they are not aware what all this commitment, all these places, part of that, and so when you don't know it, of course, then how can you keep them, so that is one thing. So that is here. Always keep your places and commitments, And should laziness or procrastination strike, immediately take note of your error one by one and remind yourself that. Strike, immediately take note of your error one by one. So again, when you are trying to study Dharma, trying to practice the Dharma, trying to practice meditate, sometimes laziness arises, Sometimes we have no inspirations to study, practice, meditate, We become lazy, and sometimes, we feel, oh, maybe I can do, instead of morning when you have time, you can say, oh, maybe I can do evening. By evening, you feel maybe a little bit tired, or maybe you feel like you want to watch a movie or watch a news, maybe I can do later after watching this news or this movie or whatever. And then you feel tired, no time today, maybe tomorrow. And sometime tomorrow, again, next day, next week. And so, we can keep on postponing our practice, our study, practice, meditations, next week, next month, next year. And days goes, 5 years already gone, 10 years already gone, and and not much is done, So again, when that recognize, be aware and recognize such that we are keep on pushing our practice, study, practice, meditation because of that laziness, and recognizing that, and then try to overcome that laziness, and such postponing by meditating on impermanent, dead impermanent, by recognizing, I cannot postpone to tomorrow or next week because I could die today evening, since I could die today evening, at least I should try to do some practice now, I could die tomorrow, I cannot postpone until next week, I could die this week, I cannot postpone until next month, I have the great opportunity now to practice now, and if I postpone for next week, next month, if I die, then I lost this great opportunity, So through meditating on impermanent in general and dead impermanent, then we'll try to overcome such laziness of postponing and putting it our Dharma practice, study and Dharma practice, pushing it day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, And remind yourself of the hard way of discipline, and whatever, the hard way of practice, whatever the hard way of practice is, try to make that as the main practice in your life and focus on that, for some, the heart of their discipline might be renunciation. For some, the heart of their discipline might be emptiness. For some, the heart of their discipline might be bodhicitta. For some, the heart of their discipline might be mindfulness. For some, the heart of their discipline might be, self-generate, generation states, whatever, while you try to do the other practice, other study practice, but whatever is the discipline of your heart, try to focus on that and never that keep always in your heart, and that is same like many practitioners might have taken many daily empowerment, but among them they have one particular practice that they feel kind of heart of their discipline, and so they focus on that particular. They will do others a little bit, but the focus should be one, and working with one particularly strongly, So whatever your heart of your discipline is, trying to find and recognize and trying to do that. Whenever you meet another person, speak calmly and sincerely and truthfully, So whenever we meet any person and if we have to engage in any conversation, any engagement, trying to speak calmly, not harshly, and being sincerely and truthful as much as possible, instead of being kind of pretending or hypocrisy and all of that, as trying to, not being truthful, take care not to frown or glare and always wear a cheerful smile, So again, even when we have a discussion or even when you have differences, when you have debate, whatever that, try to, in terms of your speech, try to keep it calm, truthful, not too loud, not screaming, harsh, swearing and so forth. And in terms of our physical appearance, try to be more cheerful, even you cannot smile, at least try to be more, fully, more, less frown and glare, and kind of, because when we show that, whether on physical level, on verbal level, it can harm the other person. It can make other persons upset, angry, fearful, all these things, So, but if you don't do that, then the other persons, might not feel as much hurt or not as much fearful, and so forth. And when you are with those you see every day, don't be stingy, but be happy to give. So again, here the practice of generosity. So to overcome the mind of stinginess or miserliness, greediness, due to strong attachment and not wanting to let it go, to overcome that stingy mind, that miserliness mind, that greedy minds, then you practice the antidote, that is the practice of generosity and giving. And generosity and giving, can be many things. It doesn't just always mean just the material things, it could be material things, it could be knowledge, it could be time, it could be your skills, whatever. It could be, space, giving space, so giving this, even giving a ride, giving space for someone to stay, live when they need. So all of that, so. And not only to practice, the practice of giving or generosity, charity, but when you practicing with happy mind, joyfully, giving it happily, joyfully, practicing generous charity with a happy mind, instead of feel like being pressured to give. When you feel like pressure to give, then you give with unhappy mind. You give it because you don't feel like you want to give, but you have been somehow pressured in some way, And so not that, but when you try to practice generous giving, then giving with very joy and happy mind, And as all many other the Bodhisattva practice mindset, when you try to give, also we try to give without any expectations, without any expectations in return, that is very important part of the practice of generosity too. When we give something out of some kind of expectation, then it can make us bitter later. It can make us bitter later, Whereas without any expectation, if you give, it doesn't make you bitter later, Whether that person is nice or not nice, it doesn't make you bitter. But when there is expectations, you expect them to be nice to you because you help them, because you give them. And when you don't see that person being so nice, then you start to become bitter. And because you feel like, you have given, but that person responds in a different ways. So then you become bitter. You become bitter with that person. You become bitter with yourself. You become bitter with a lot of other things. You become bitter. You experience pain, sufferings. So all that comes because there is some level of expectations. There is some level of expectations. And so without expectation, try to give, but be happy to give, and not only give, but to be happy to be able to do that. And banish all feeling of envy, and also here practice, when you see the success of others, happiness of others, prosperity of others, sometimes we might feel jealous and envy for others. I'm not successful, that person is so successful. I'm not so happy, that person is so happy. Things are going, I'm having so much obstacles, and that person seems to have it all smooth and great. So all that, so then we start to feel jealousy and envy of others. So again, that mind is the mind of jealousy or envy is something, painful feeling, unpleasant feelings. And so again, whenever we have such feeling, to do mindfulness, be aware of that, recognize that, and then try to let it go by practicing, rejoicing, rejoicing in others' success, rejoicing in others' happiness, rejoicing in others' prosperity, rejoicing in others' virtues, seeing, even I'm not successful, that person is successful, at least one person is successful, at least one sentient being is successful. So I'm happy for that. May he or she have successful. May everyone also have successful. Even though I'm not happy, that person is happy. That is great. Even though I'm not happy, at least someone is happy. May he or she has happiness. May he or she continue to be happy. May or she continue to be happy, and may everyone has happiness like that. Even though I'm having, even though I'm unable to do so much virtues, even though I'm not being able to practice strongly, even though I'm not being able to make much progress, even though I'm unable to study much, but at least that person is studying so much or have the opportunity to study. At least that person's practicing, meditating, at least that person is making progress. I'm happy for that. May he or she have more progress, more success, more opportunity to study and all of that. So in that way, we try to rejoice in all of that. And by doing that, when you rejoice in that, then you don't feel this miserable of due to the envy and jealousy. Instead, so that is why here, that is what it seems, banish all feeling of joy and envy. And how we can do that is by practicing the rejoicing. By practicing the rejoicing. So as to protect others' peace of mind, stay clear of quarrel of any kind. Yeah, and so again, in order to protect someone's peace of mind, in order to protect your own peace of mind, try not to quarrel. We can quarrel about everything and nothing can be accomplished. And everyone get upset at the end. Everyone's peace of mind is disturbed. That's all you accomplish at the end. That's all you accomplish. In so many conversations, we can debate and quarrel about, different opinions, on, let's say, climate, let's say on politics, let's say on all things. And we debate and we quarrel as though we're going to solve the problem, world's problem. At the end, we do nothing. We just go being upset. That is all we do. What did you achieve from that? Both of us were upset. When both of us lost peace of mind, that is all you achieved. Did you change the world? Nothing. Not one thing has been changed from that kind of quarrel. Nothing has changed. You don't change the world, and that is what happens. That is a lot of time. That is what happens. So therefore, we cannot achieve much, but we lost our peace of mind. it disturbs someone's peace of mind, and also you lose also peace of mind, so that is what. And be patient and always forbearing, and then, practicing the patience always as much as possible, and if we are patient, then, we have less, we don't get much anger, resentment, grudges, and if we don't get upset, angry, hatred, grudges, resentment, then, we find more peace in our mind, and we don't hurt and harm others. Also, when you are that more with the practice, when your mind is more calm, peaceful, your mind is more open, spacious, and that helps also develop love, compassion. When your mind disturbed with anger and upset and that, there's no space for love and compassion in that state of mind. When you are in a state of such strong hatred and anger and resentment, your mind is not open, your mind is not spacious to feel love and compassion, bodhicitta mind. On the other hand, when your mind is calm, peaceful because of your patience, when your mind is undisturbed, unagitated, then you create better environment, peaceful environment within your mind, spacious environment within your mind, and that allow, to feel love, compassion, bodhicitta. So don't flatter or be a pickly friend, but be steady and reliable all the time. And so that is, instead of trying to make too many friends, but unsteady and unreliable, always changing, it's better to have more reliable, steady friends, even if it's very few, but something you can rely on, something they can rely on, when in the needs of ours, when they need, you are being able to be there, at least trying to be there, at least the intention is there, whether you are, sometimes situation, even you want to be for them, sometimes situation doesn't allow, but at least you have the true sincerely wanting to be for their help, and same way others. So it's better to have quality friends instead of the quantity, not qualities, so that is, never disparage or belittle other people, but treat everyone with respect. Yeah. And here the advice is that, nobody like to be belittled, We don't want others to belittle us and mistreat us, look down on us, just as we don't want others to mistreat you, belittle you, and disparage you. Same way, just as the way you want others to treat you, you also try to treat others that way. Just we all want people to treat you respectfully, and not only you want others, just as you want others to treat you respectfully, then here also he's saying you also try to treat others respectfully. Even when you disagree, you can disagree respectfully, and that is the key. It doesn't mean we have to agree to everything. Be with your friends, be with your families, be with others, be with your teachers. We can disagree. It doesn't mean you have to agree in everything, but the way we agree or disagree is the important. Whether we agree or disagree, we do that respectfully. And when we do that respectfully, the other doesn't get offended or hurt, because you can see, you respect their views, you respect them, even though you don't agree, So there is less of feeling of hurt and offended, Whereas when we do this disrespectfully, then the other person get offended and hurt, and that create more pain, suffering, and more problems, and more conflict. And when giving advice or instructions, do so with compassion and genuine wish to help. So whenever we try to give any kind of advice, instructions, or when someone asks for advice and instructions, so here's and try to do with compassion and sincerely wish to help, with a compassion motivation as much as possible, as much as possible. Be sure never to criticize teachings. And again, we have to be very careful. There might be a certain part of teaching that we might not connect, because we all are different individuals. Not every teachings of the Buddha will connect with us. That is why Buddha gives so many different levels of teachings. That is why there is so many different tenets. Within the Buddhist tenets, you see 4 tenets. Within the vehicle, there are 3 vehicles, and there are so many. Why? Because not one particular teaching suits everyone's. Certain teachings practice suit certain individual, but not necessarily everyone's. So according to the type that those teaching was giving, according to the needs of different individuals at different stages of their path, different stages of their life. So therefore, even for us, there will be a lot of teachings which does not connect with us at the moment, because where we are, we haven't reached that level or stages where we can connect with that particular practice or teachings. So if we don't connect with that, we just put it on the shelf and don't criticize it. We don't know. You don't need to criticize it. You create a lot of negative karma by criticizing. We don't criticize, if we don't suit you, doesn't connect with you, we just, because it suits someone, it helps someone, it benefits someone, even though it is. So those teachings, we just try to, like a book keeping in the shelf, we just keep it. Maybe in the future, you might connect it. Maybe you might be able to connect it, not now, but futures. And even you cannot connect in the future, still then you again keep. So don't criticize. Be sure never criticize the teachings. So that is another advice. Set your sight on what inspires you most. So within the practice, within the teachings, there are so many teachings, there are so many practices, and whatever inspires you the most, try to put more effort on that, because if you have, if you engage in something that inspires you, then there is more enthusiasm in that particular practice, that particular meditation teachings. And because there's more enthusiasm and more joy, then you will make better, you will make more effort, and also you will make more progress. But if something, it doesn't inspire you, then, it doesn't give you enthusiasm and joy in that practice. And if you don't have enthusiasm and joy, then you wouldn't put so much effort. If you don't put much effort, then you are not going to have better result. So therefore, that is, we try to find which particular practice and so on inspire you most, and then set your mind in that and make more effort towards that. And through the 10 forms of Dharma practices, accept yourself in sessions day and night. So those 10 forms of Dharma practice, according to some, there are a few different, according to the different sources, what are those 10 forms of Dharma practice. But according to some, the 10 spiritual training, the 10 form of Dharma practice. They're saying, you know, it's writing the Dharma, you know, the teachings, making offerings, you know, to the holy objects, you know, practicing generosity to those who are in the needs, you know, listening to the Dharma, you know, memorizing the Dharma teachings or the texts, prayers, you know, and reading the Dharma, you know, Dharma books, texts, you know, and then, you know, teaching the Dharma, you know, and then the recitation of the sutras, you know, the prayers, dharmas, and contemplations, you know, contemplation, the meaning of the teachings, the Dharma, and then, you know, meditating on that. So those are the 10 form of Dharma practices. So here is said to put a lot of effort in the session day and night, you know, trying to engage in those 10 form of Dharma practices, you know. Yeah, so that is what. Amongst others, keep check on your speech. When alone, keep check on your mind. This is one of the great advice that. So here we spoke before, you know, when you are in with others, you know, be very mindful of your speech, you know, very mindful of your speech, because what you say, the others get other hurts, hear that, and that can affect their mind, you know, what you say, you know, that can hurt others, that can discourage others with what you say. By saying something, you can make them discouraged, you can make them feel bad with your words, you know, you might make them feel arrogant, you know, you might make them feel upset, you might feel them jealousy, you might make them feel all. So with what we say, with our speech, it can, you know, give rise to the delusion within themselves. So therefore we have this very mindful and careful when with others, when you speak, you know, make sure that, you know, you don't engage in something that's harmful, that is hurtful, negative, you know. And then in alone, even though you don't have to be so checking and careful with your speech, because there's no one to engage in the talk and the speech, but your mind is still there, and your mind can be very, you know, going everywhere and thinking everything's, you know, all kind of negative things, you know, and creating a lot of drama within your mind and so forth. And so therefore, you know, be very mindful and keep check on your mind all the time. And, you know, when we have negative thoughts, negative feelings, you know, try to stop from having more negative thought, more negative feeling. Instead, try to see if you can have more positive feeling, positive thoughts in that way. And that way, then we can start to change our mind slowly, you know. And then next one is the dedications by the author, you know, Atisha, from composing this text. Whatever virtues you amaze in the past, present, and futures, dedicate them towards great unsurprising awakening. So, you know, advice to dedicate whatever virtues after we engage in any kind of virtues, such as, you know, any studies, any kind of practice, meditation, we try to dedicate all these virtues to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Share your merit among all sentient beings, and you also dedicate to the well-being and happiness of all sentient beings. And with 7 branch practice, continuously make great prayer to aspiration. And also you try to practice in 7 limb practices, and then great prayer aspiration of such as, the Bodhisattvas, Samadhabhadras, prayers, aspiring prayers, so forth, such as King of Prayer and so forth. Practice like this, you will complete. And when we engage in such practice, you will complete accumulation, both merit and wisdom, the two collections. And by accumulating the two collection, merit and wisdom, eliminate two forms of obscurations. So through the wisdom, we can eliminate the obscuration of defilements. And the merit supported by the wisdom, then we can eliminate the obscuration of the knowledge or the obscuration of the subtle obscuration of the omniscient. So those are two forms of obscuration. So one can overcome those two obscuration, and you will make this human-like meaningful. And in this time, gain unsuppressible awakening. And if we engage such practice, then your life will be meaningful, and then you will be able to make a progress in your spiritual path, progressing from being ordinary to then enter the first path, and first path to second path, and eventually the bhumis, and then fully awaken gradually, slowly. And so this concludes the Bodhisattva garlands of jewel composed by the great Indian Pandita Divamkara Shri Jnana. Okay, with that, I think we will complete. So with that, we completed this. Again, as I mentioned, there's so much in a short couple of pages, but there's so much instruction, there's so much practices, there's so much advices. So even we cannot follow all of them, we try to see from that there are certain practice, there are certain advice, instruction that you feel you need to work on. That's something that inspires you, something, and just try to improve and try to progress. And we might not make progress immediately, but maybe after a few years we might see some progress. And so that is okay. So any questions? I can take a couple of questions, one or two. Yes, Amy.
It seemed that there was an announcement. Was it from His Holiness saying that there was if the students of FPMT recited the names of Manjushri, that would bring about the swift return of Lama Zopa? How would why that particular thing to recite? What is the connection with Lama Zopa in that? Or
you have to ask His Holiness Dalai Lama.
Oh, but can you make some connection for us, or talk about that a little bit of what that is about?
Well, it is not about the swift return of His Holiness, Rinpoche. I think it's more His Holiness says, His Holiness has given different practice and advice over the time, At the very beginning, His Holiness gave advice to do Chidamani practice, and then, so His Holiness time to time check, I think maybe His Holiness does definitions or maybe in some meditations. So in that moment, His Holiness will see what practice needs to be done. And so recently, FPMT asked His Holiness to about Rinpoche's reincarnations. And so His Holiness says he will check later, but at the moment, do this practice. And then if you do that practice, after some time, he will check, and then he will give some advice, and so that is how. And I don't know particularly exactly why this particular practice, that I cannot say, I don't really know, so yeah, I can assume, or I can make many things around it, but I really don't know, because but definitely the advice is to recite that, and then His Holiness will soon check it, about the reincarnations. Yeah.
We had been given that by Serkon Rinpoche.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that he gave when he came.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, thank you. Anyway,
Yeah.
wondered, yeah.
Of course, is to improve the wisdom is related to Manjushri. Definitely related to Manjushri, and also related to Yamataka as well.
So obstacles then, to get rid of obstacles too,
Yeah.
if it's related to Yamataka, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Most welcome. Any questions? I can take one more question if there is questions. If not, then we do the dedications. If there's question, still please ask. Yes, Sheila.
So when you were talking about when someone does you injury, to think of it as a purification. But, I was thinking about the whole situation in the Middle East and the Israelis and the Palestinians and Hamas and all the other countries. So is that in some sense a purification? I mean, there's so much injury going on now. Everybody's just, going crazy.
Well, I don't think it is right for us to say, is a result of their karma. I think even that is the case, even that might is not a right for us to say that. And it might be a comparison, but if it, for example, whatever we are experiencing pain because of that situations, our mind is disturbed, okay? Our mind is being disturbed by that situations. So that our mind being disturbed and we are experiencing the pain, I'm experiencing disturbance, and from that is my karma and resolve my karma, and that is form of purification for me. So I think it is this kind of thinking, even though it applies everyone, but I think it's more to do with ourselves. When it happened to us, something else, we try to think that way. But to say is their karma, I think it's, even though that might be the truth, but I think it's not the right way to do, the right way to say, and compassion way to say it. But I think when it something happened to ourselves, if we can think that way, it can be way of looking more positive than negative for ourselves, and so our mind doesn't get so negative because we think negatively in that way. Yeah. So, but when you come to others, I don't think it is the right to say that is result of their negative karma.
So that's not like what they would call collective karma?
Yeah, definitely everyone who is experiencing the suffering collectively, that's a collective karma. Even that one, from Buddhist point of view, is their karma. But for me to say is their karma, it seems very uncompassionate and very unkind. And then so that is the only thing. And then where also it can be misunderstood and misinterpreted, especially people who are experiencing that, that's such for them, because they don't have the same concept, and so for us to say that, they can understand it is something else, and that could have another level of bad feelings. Yeah. Okay. So then you want to do the dedications?
Dedications, yes.
We can start the Shantidevas with the Shantideva one. Yeah. Yeah. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or even fall ill. May no one be afraid and belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, and those who with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, prosperity. May there be timely rains, bountiful harvest, and may all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailment, whatever disease they are in the world. May they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. And again, like all of the most Lojong teachings, the teachings are incredible, wonderful, but it's not easy to practice. And we shouldn't be so discouraged because we are unable to apply them immediately. We just try to apply, integrate whatever we can, little by little. And if we can apply, and if we can integrate little by little, and if we make small progress, that is good enough. Here is talking about, you're finishing your school, graduation, undergraduation, graduate, all this. But when you are still on grade 1, you should be happy when you reach the second grade. Even though there is all that, these are the Bodhisattva practice, where you are describing about all the practice and studies of those high level of that. And so we shouldn't be so discouraged saying, oh, I'm not there, because if you are in grade 1, you should be happy you do well there and you pass and you did well and reach the second grade, and you don't have to be so, because we are describing about some of the Bodhisattvas, high level of Bodhisattvas. That is kind of an ideal that we want to reach there. That is something we want to do, but at the same time, knowing where we are and where we need to work on. And okay, thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Come back again.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you. Good night. Okay.
Everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Sheila.
Good night.